and welcome to Gallifrey's Most Wanted. I'm Ross Aiken, I'm Old Who.
You don't have to use that 15th century double talk with me. I speak it up pretty good English.
And I'm Victoria Wheeler, I'm New Who.
Well, don't just stand there. I'm in the market for congratulations.
And we are into the first, what is this, season 13? 14. First story of season 14. And the Masque of Mandragora. I've never gotten this damn name, my mouth around it. Which is, we're getting near the end of the Hinchcliffe home era. We're in their last season and about to lose Sarah Jane, but this isn't her last story, which is...
it's her penultimate story.
So let's jump to the synopsis and we'll be right back. Masque of Mandragora. Serial 4M. Writer Louis Marks. Director Rodney Bennett. Script editor Robert Holmes. Producer Philip Hinchcliffe. Originally aired September 4th, 1976 to September 25th, 1976. The TARDIS is drawn off course by the Mandragora Helix, a powerful alien energy complex. Unknown to the Doctor, a portion of Mandragora conceals itself inside the TARDIS, which lands on Earth. The Doctor and Sarah Jane find themselves in the Dukedom of San Martino in Italy in the 15th century. The evil Count Federico is planning to usurp the rule of his nephew, Giuliano. He is aided by Hieronymus, the court astrologer, and secret leader of the Brothers of Demnos, a cult of star worshippers. Mandragora takes over Hieronymus, seeking to form a bridgehead so that it can kill the great minds of the Renaissance and plunge Earth into the Dark Ages. Federico is murdered by Hieronymus, now transformed into an energy creature. The Doctor defeats the Helix by draining its energy. Another amazing synopsis from the Doctor Who Program Guide, the complete guide to every Doctor Who story by Jean-Marc Levasseur. Get yours today. All right, that's the synopsis. I'll go first this time. I enjoyed this story. I don't hate it, but I realize every time I watch it, it's not one that sticks. You know what I mean? It's not one, I remember this was that. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, this was, I don't know. I haven't had just kind of a middle of a road story in so long. I was like, wow. I mean, I like certain aspects of it a great deal, but as a story, I don't think it's the greatest representation of this era, even though it has a lot of the little things about this era.
Mm-hmm.
So, I do like that it's set in the past, and in a past we hadn't seen, we're about to see a lot of Victoriana.
Yeah.
So it was nice to go back somewhere far in the past into another country. It's not always, he keeps landing in England and England alone. So what did you...
I mean, this one hit weird. I can't remember watching this one before.
See, I don't think... You may have done it. See what I mean? I don't think it's one that doesn't stick.
It really doesn't. And I felt strongly that I hadn't watched it before. And there's About Time addresses it in one way very well, because they say that you give the BBC a historical script and they come back and make sure that every tiny costume and set detail is accurate, but you give them a space script and they give you a stick with a flashlight on the end.
Yeah.
Right? And
that's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Because you'll watch, this looks better than a lot of Doctor Who because
it looks great.
Better sets, the costumes are impeccable. They shot it at the same place where The Prisoner is filmed.
Right.
For the exteriors, but you just didn't see any of the buildings.
But the story is riddled with nonsense just riddled with it. And that's the problem. Like, the acting's on point. Tim Pigott-Smith, who
Yeah,
plays
it's so weird to see him in that. It's like
in this sort of tertiary role. I know. And his voice is just Shakespearean, right? He has taken this more seriously than any person who's ever been in Doctor Who, right? Like, he has got this down. And yeah, he's a nobody at this point in his career, and grows to play villains, right? Yeah. Really great villains in Passage to India. And
I forgot he's in that one. I was thinking there was the last big thing he did was a stage play called Charles this Charles's number, because it was like
third
Charles III, where he plays Charles III after he's taken the throne.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it got huge raves, like freakish people were like, wow.
Right, and here he is playing like the best friend, and he's a
sidekick to the handsome leading man.
I know, and he's great in it. He's just great, and you can't get. I mean, maybe Roger Delgado, because we just had him, is a better mustache twirler than the guy who plays.
You get two over the top bad guys. In this
movie. Well, that's the problem, is you got two bad guys, right? And a monster, right? Like, you got too many things going on.
And both the villains, it's not a villain and his sidekick and the nephew and the sidekick. You know what I mean? It's just, it is. But
it's two separate villains, and they make, but you know, it's me. Apologies, folks. I get a few comments on Twitter that people show up sometimes for my historical breakdowns, but nothing breaks down like the history in Masque of Mandragora, or whatever this is. Nothing breaks down like their history. Their history falls apart immediately, and it's terrible, and it's so glaring that I can't focus. Right? Like, I got angry.
You know what gets me is I'm trying to find the note because Louis Marx, the guy that wrote it, his doctorate it is in Renaissance history or something like that.
Yeah, no, Renaissance, Florence. It's Florence,
He's
Italy.
Specific to Florentine history?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
He wrote his dissertation on exactly what we're dealing with here.
And what got me is, and because I agree with you, I mean, but it has that stamp of TV foreign country. They just give you'll know it by the clothes. It's like in American TV, we'd go, they're in Mexico. How can you tell? There's a dude wearing a sombrero.
Right.
Okay? That's it.
But if the doctor spouts some nonsense about being in between, superstition and reason, right? As if there was a switch, right? As if it just stops one day.
No, it took hundreds of years.
Well, but also they existed together for reasons, right? Like that was, but you cannot have a guy look at somebody, have a guy say, we'll invite Leonardo, and then say, there are people who are there are people who are combining lenses and they say they can see the surface of the moon. And there are people who believe that we orbit around the sun. Mm-hmm. You can't say those three things together, because the Leonardo stuff dates this to Columbus, right? It dates this to
it's very specific about time.
Yeah.
See, and I was like, wow, that's a good point, because I never really thought about what year it was in and how it would reflect to that.
So Copernicus is in college. All right? Copernicus is 20 years old. Copernicus isn't going to write his statement, his first sort of wanderings into Copernicus, who is a very important word in our family right now, because that's who we named our puppy after. He doesn't even start to make his theory about heliocentrism for almost 20 years. And he doesn't get published until 50 years. It gets published in 1543. He makes a few commentaries beforehand and then puts it aside because it's laughable for 50 years, right? Galileo isn't born until 1564 and doesn't even hear about the Dutch perspective glasses that inspired the putting together of a telescope until 1608. So you're a full 15 years off from the combining lenses. And we should say it's Hans Lippershey, or Lippershey, depending on the spelling. But, I mean, 15 years, I say it's 115 years.
Yeah, no, it's like it's that thing, and Doctor Who's more guilt, because they rarely do historicals this point. You know, we haven't really seen anything, and if they do one, it's like, it's the 1800s. Well, that's more to come. That's a come. Right, we have a couple of Victoria. That's a couple of war. But
Marx has no excuse.
I know he doesn't. It's like, but he just does the lazy thing of all that great thought. You could put all those great thinkers in a single room because that would be neat for the Doctor to meet them all.
Right.
And that's all it's there for.
Yeah.
And I don't even like it when, you know, and every Doctor name drops. And every once in a while they mention meeting somebody, you know, because there are a couple times they talk about Leonardo in Baker's era. Like City of Death, it's a big piece.
Right.
But it's like you're watching. It's very cartoon. It's so simplistic that it does take you out.
It does.
Yeah. So
it definitely took me out. I was irritated by that. And then, you know, there aren't spaceship corridors, but there are catacombs. And then there's two baddies. And
I like both the baddies.
Yeah, but
you know, but they're not. Are they both necessary? Do they both need to be that big apart?
Well, there's really three, right? Because you've got the Count Frederico, and he's in league with the Hieronymus, and so at first, and then they fall out. But then there's also the Brotherhood, right?
Which is all these three different people with three different agendas at all. And they're not even manipulated by the Helix.
Right.
The Helix is just like, which one do I mess with?
Right.
I'll just wait here.
And
then
one of these guys will
it's
make
a little
move.
and I think it's part of this. It's like that thing. Now we're talking about it. That thing about not watching this, and we're not watching it in the way it was designed to be watched, which was 25 minutes and then a 1 week pause.
I still wouldn't forgive
the history part. I wouldn't forgive, but some of the adding of stuff to the story to give them, you know, it's to keep the story. You have so much in it because you just keep it interesting from week to week. I don't think it works.
No, the story doesn't work for me. It really doesn't, because I had a hard time. I actually watched parts of this 3 times in order to figure out what the hell was going on, because I kept getting lost, right? Like I just kept not caring.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not it for me. I'm a huge fan of the Hinchcliffe Holmes era. I'm not a big fan of Baker just because it's not my style. I appreciate what he's doing. I really do. I have a great appreciation for what he's doing. And to go from Pertwee and to make it so individual and so alien, I really appreciate what he's doing. It's just not my style. He just mugs a lot, and
he's a little less muggy in this.
It's
very Action Man. I mean, Terry Walsh is very Action Man, because it's definitely not him jumping up on the horses, because you know what I mean.
Right. No, I know.
The wig's terrible.
But he walks out at one point when they've taken Sarah Jane, and she's got the orange juice dripping off of her mouth, right? And he says, "Stop." And it's the most commanding that the Doctor ever.
Oh yeah, I watched that a couple times because he says stop. The dude, he karate, judo, whatever, Aikido's the dude over, and then he goes, put the girl down gently.
Yeah.
It's a great line, and he
It's a
delivers
great
it great.
line,
And then he gets hit in the
he-
head with a styrofoam rock.
Well, I mean, but he's all of his 6'4". There's always something, I don't have the right word for it. And there's always something a little cartoonish about Pertwee's action scenes. I understand that the man, right, what we now know about John Pertwee is that he's like a subclass Christopher Lee, right?
Yeah,
he actually knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
But
he was also athletic. You know?
yeah, he was.
So he's also athletic. I don't think Tom
But there's
Baker
a
was
little,
athletic.
but his whole being is rooted in comedy.
Yeah.
And so it plays a little clownish. There's just something about the meter.
He puts a little camp into it.
He does.
He does.
It's a flourish.
And it's also that Shakespearean actor on stage kind of, especially when he would have been, you know.
I think that's more what Baker does. But Baker comes out in this scene and is silent and still. And he says, stop. And you feel every inch of his 6'4" frame, right?
Yeah.
You feel
every figure.
He is. And, but not always. And that's lovely. Right?
He can hide it. He can make himself soft and small when he's being nice to somebody.
Yeah.
But when he gets riled, it's...
Right. When he stops to take off the scarf, you know, like he has great moments in this. And Sarah Jane, you know, has some moments. But right? The cast is great. The main actors are doing their thing at the peak of their skills, right? And it's Hinchcliffe Holmes, which is one of my favorite eras of old Who, if not, right? Like, okay, Cartmel and then Hinchcliffe Holmes, right?
Yeah.
And it's a historical setting.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't mind the history, it's a monster, you know, Vampires of Venice sort of thing. And the story does nothing. Like, I can't keep my focus. And it's such a disappointment, right?
Yeah. It is. I get you. Because, I mean, this is one of the ones I've probably seen the most because of the way it was distributed
aired, right.
when I was growing up. And I've done at least 5 or 6 rewatches in 40 years or whatever.
More rewatches.
Yeah, so it's just, this is one I always get to it, and what makes me sad is, I know it's the end of Sarah Jane, and Sarah Jane's probably my favorite companion ever still.
Sure.
You
met her when you were 13.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad because the last one we did was Seeds of Doom, which is amazing, and she's great in it.
Yeah.
This one is meh, and I like The Hand of Fear, Eldrad Must Live.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of, it's a good action piece. She gets possessed a little too long, you know, for her final story. And it has a nice end. It has a nice goodbye to her. But I don't think it's the best story. The story's not focused enough on her in her last story in a way I think is proper. That she should be the driving thing in the story, where she's, you know, she's not. So this one's so disappointing is because she's good in a couple scenes. The henchmen for the cult are terrible. Those, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, they bug me when they're walking away with her. It looks like the dude's about to drop her on her head.
I mean, the story doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I don't understand why. I don't understand.
Why there's a lot that doesn't make sense.
Right, like there's, and whatever it is that does get explained isn't solid enough, or the story isn't compelling enough.
I think that's more it. It's really not, because we're totally different. I'll have a fondness of most Doctor Who's where I go, oh, this is this is what I like. This is one that I really don't ever think about. I forget about it. Other than it's the one in the shop where the prisoner is, and the good. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's the one where we get told how the TARDIS translates for you. But I don't remember the story. I remember some of the campy parts of the story.
It doesn't really tell you that the TARD. It doesn't. He doesn't say that. He says it's a Time Lord's gift.
Yeah, and then I think it's not until End of the World where they say some more stuff about it.
Yeah. Hey, listen. In reading through About Time, they make a really good point, and this is where our way of watching this does help, because this puts to death the monster of the week. This is them saying that's over. And we're going to actually attempt something with depth. And then they say, Mark's got his start on the show during the Hartnell era. And immediately it drew the parallel with the Aztecs. And that's where I was like, if that's what he was going for, I can see it, and I can see the value in that, and I can see what he was trying, right?
Yeah.
That rather than a society's religion, right, and then our 20th century take on their religion, right? Rather than that clash of cultures, the cultural clash is within their own society. Okay, yeah. Right? And that there's essentially a high priest, right, Hieronymus, and there's people who are going to benefit by driving off non-believers, Count Federico, right? And the non-believer in this is not Barbara, but the prince, right? And so it makes total sense. It just fails.
Yeah. See, that sounds like a more interesting thing if you take out the monster. I like Hieronymus because he's some of the best writing in this is just Baker picking at him.
Yeah.
Because it is that angry disdain of Jesus. Why am I having? And that kind of hit home because we live in a society now with where people believe some really dumb shit. I believe that's me. You know, people that'll believe anything they hear or read, even more.
No, they're not even reading.
Yeah.
Any headline they see.
Yeah, they're just they're being affected by clickbait and shit like that. And
here's a perfect example. I saw a headline a month or so ago that said, local elementary school bans all sports with any contact. And I go, wait a second, what? That's not going to go over well. Yeah. I understand why. That's not going to go over well. So I click on the article, and the first line of the article restates it and adds the incredibly important point: at recess. At recess, you don't have trained people supervising the interaction. You aren't teaching rules. You just have a couple of untrained, like minimum wage employees standing around. They're often parents who take a part-time job to watch over the classes at recess, and then they are lunch monitors, and then they go home with their kids in tow. And I started to see some bubbling up of this. They're not even letting kids play football or soccer or basketball because all the woke mafia, right? I started to see that because there was a headline. And nobody even said, wait a second, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
They just assumed that that's what's going on. So, it was to get the click, right?
Yeah.
They wanted to piss people off. I clicked because it didn't make sense. Yeah. It didn't make me mad. It didn't make sense.
I'm the same way. I have certain news sources I go to, The Guardian and other ones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For a lot of stuff. but I do check headlines in CNN and
Mm-hmm.
the Post, and I'll even peek in at Fox because I want to see how they're
I
presenting
want
it.
to see how they're.
Yeah,
right.
that's how you're, because I'm smart enough to, go like you go, that's a fuck, why, what does this headline mean? And I click it and I go,
Right.
what, that's not
what this is about. Right?
And it's, and everybody does it. I mean, it's a headline, it's part of the, but it's, yeah. And that's kind of what this is, there's something about that kind of
belief, right.
yeah. And the doctor, they don't go, he's not polite about it. What I'd like, it's not, hey, we have to understand their culture. No, this is really stupid. You believe in the movements of, his comeback when Hieronymus asked him that question, is just basically coded in, go F yourself, dickhead.
Yeah. No, or even later when where he's waiting for him and he confronts him and he says, oh, drop it.
It's like being talked to by that drunk in a bar. Really? Shut up.
Right. It's me.
But he's got a kicking beard. He looks great. That's the other thing.
It is, right? And
everything looks so good.
Right, but in some of these, some of the Third Doctor stories, or even in Seeds, where they show up and all the guys have beards and they're terrible.
Yeah, it's really not to be meant. I watched it on that one. I watched on the big TV I got in my office.
Yeah, you can't watch that.
It was like I could see the netting.
I know, I know, and the glue, but that beard.
Is that eczema? No, that's just spirit gum.
The beard on Hieronymus is glorious. I mean,
is it real? I think it's real.
No,
it's fake.
Nobody. I mean, people now.
Nobody until the hipster movement in this.
But
places. Yeah, I went to New York and I saw a hipster walk by me and I went, "Oh, the hipsters are middle aged."
Well, how long does it take to grow a beard like that?
It depends on the person.
Right. However, no working actor is going to grow a beard.
But I would love a beard like that.
It's a good-looking beard.
Yeah. Well, they're easier to groom when they're longer.
But this guy wasn't walking around London with that beard. It was in 1970, whatever.
Work.
Right.
He'd play baddies, and he'd hope he could sing so he could be in operas, because that's a fucking opera beard.
Yeah. I mean, it's a hillbilly beard, really, is what it is.
Well, he's too... Yeah, but it's clean.
Yeah.
and he's not wearing, And I think the Duke's an okay villain, and he's a good actor I've seen.
He's twirling his mustache, too, right? Neither one of them
He's
have
got
mustaches.
a good scene with the Doctor. When they have their first conflict.
Their first conflict, I know. And the Doctor says, look, I have to take it back to the stars. And Baker is great in this.
He's so good.
Sladen is as good, right? She's just a pro, right?
Yeah, and she makes you believe what I mean? That it's her next to last story. She's basically a prop.
I know.
In episodes 1 and 2. It's Elizabeth Sladen, you dickheads.
I know, but he does have a beautiful moment where he says, I'm your best friend.
Yes. That's is this like the first time they say that?
It's the first time.
Yeah.
It's the first time. And it's just,
it's also the first time she's credited in the credits as Sarah Jane instead of Sarah. Because I'm like, it took you a year of Baker, because Pertwee doesn't call her Sarah Jane. He calls her Sarah.
Oh, well.
And but I think it's something about Baker. Or I don't think he did. So they're so good together.
They really are. And he's just at his peak. Really. Like he's got, God, that lion head on him looks fantastic. There's a whole lot about the sets, the costumes that are fantastic. Yeah, Sarah Jane is just hitting her mark and saying the lines that she's given, which she has done. She does her entire career.
Right.
A pro's pro.
Yeah.
And this is just it's sad fodder for her departure. Yeah. But he's great. I'm just disappointed that this is a Hinchcliffe Holmes.
Holmes didn't like. I mean, Holmes was against it. Louis Marks does good scripts. His other ones are, I've liked what he does.
Right.
Solid
Mind of
TV writer.
Evil?
He's a solid TV writer. The dialogue's not terrible. It's kind of like the structure is, like you said, the structure
Mind
is.
of Evil? Is that one of his?
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just not. It doesn't hit all the marks, and it's a little.
Planet of Evil.
Planet of Evil. I like Planet of Evil. It's got that great set. That set. That's the one with. But everybody's got the shoulder pad spacesuits with the low cut. There's some. That one's
And a stick with the flashlight on the end. I hear you.
Yeah. It really makes up to it, because that one I think holds up even with the translucent tinfoil monster. Because it's a better story, but in the same way, all the characters are pretty well formed, and there's some great dialogue, which is, I guess, why I kind of like Mark's story, and I like Planet of Evil. But this one, it doesn't stick. There's no weight to it to hold it in my memory, or to even go. I have to whenever I do a rewatch and I get to it, it's like, what's next? Is it Hand of Fear? Oh no, there's Masque Dragon.
Mm-hmm. So I just found Louis Marx wrote his postgraduate thesis on the Renaissance that was titled "The Development of the Institutions of Public Finance in Florence During the Last 60 Years of the Republic, circa 1470 to 1539." So that's why he got the gig. I got to tell you, I didn't know much about that period of Florence until I was in law school, and I learned that our banking systems and everything we use, checks, bearer
all
bonds,
invented in Florence.
In Florence during that period. So
the
public financial,
Yep.
Public
Those
financial.
nasty people are big on keeping records.
Well, no, it was how you transfer money, right? Even our electronic transfers now have their roots, their legal and contractual roots were invented by the Medici family, because they had stockpiles of gold and they weren't about to put it on a ship and have it go down. And so what they said is, we have stockpiles of gold. Here's a piece of paper.
Here's our word that
we're transferring this to your column at their bank, and they'll know that then they owe us, right? Like all transfers of money can date back. All paper transfers or non-tactile, right? Right. Our real property goes back, and has its roots. Ours. When I say ours, I'm with real property. I'm talking about the English common law, which we then adopted. Money transfers are obviously international, but we still have something called delivery of season, which is SEI, and it's it was originally handing a lump of dirt, and now we do it with earnest money or a paper transaction, and so they all have their roots someplace. But to deliver real property, you hand it over, something tactile, something in your hand, right?
Yeah.
And the Medicis developed a way of transferring something without the dirt ever leaving their hand, right? Without the gold ever leaving their hand. And that was revolutionary. And so that's what he wrote his postdoctorate or his postgraduate work on. And that's fascinating. And he gets Copernicus wrong.
Yeah, well, it's that little kid's book of Renaissance kind of attitude toward history. I think, do the producer, does Hinchcliffe and Holmes and Marx go, just mention Leonardo, just mention a couple things. And,
right, right. But a guy who did his doctoral thesis on it would have his head pop off.
Yeah, but see, what gets me is the party with all the famous people coming is another kind of thing that's just added in. It could just be you're having the coronation for the prince.
I know. Yes.
You don't have to mention it at all.
Well, you could just have a mask in association with the coronation, right? But this is to prove that everything is well in San Martino, and then people at the Masque get struck down by lightning inside, and nobody complains. Right? Not to mention that this is how I really believe that I've never seen this one.
Okay.
Because I don't think I would have forgotten or forgiven the hand with the whatever added on special effect lightning.
Yeah.
And then the cut to the lady going, oh, and falling over to the side. Over and over and over.
When the uncle, the bad guy, gets zapped, he just kind of slides out of camera. It's like he doesn't even kind of light up. It's like someone's like under this below the camera eye line with a flashlight, just kind of wiggling it near him. It's
terrible.
It is.
And I, like I said, I don't think I would forget or forgive.
Maybe you did. Maybe because it's so forgettable, your subconscious saw it, and it was the universe going, "Nah, just skip that one."
Yeah, you have 250 more of these to go.
Yeah.
You know, and if you focus on this one too much, you'll never get through it.
All right.
I still have the Fifth Doctor in front of me. God.
I think the next Fifth Doctor one is one you're either going to really, I hope you remember it fondly, or you're going to beat it to death. It's one I really love.
It's the one before the King's Demons, right?
Yeah, this is one where the Eternals are having a boat race around star planets.
Oh, yeah, because it's the woman from Gunfighters.
Yeah. I like it because it's that high concept science fiction.
Yeah.
And it's one of the ones where at least it's not the King's Demons.
Right.
And we just watched Terminus before it, so King's Demons is I was talking to Jeff a while back, and he likes it, and I'm like, wow, it's one I really just bugs the crap out of me.
Chameleon bugs the crap out of me.
Yeah, they find that Chameleon works on radio because they did some stories with him in Big Finish, and John Coleshaw did the voice. A shape changer in an audio play is still as silly as the robot that doesn't work.
Who is the most hated Doctor Who companion?
Hated? I mean, everybody likes, every companion is somebody's companion.
I know, but I just typed in worst Doctor Who companion.
Well, what did you get?
Adric.
That's consent, yeah. We all have learned to love Matthew Waterhouse.
Is this just new? This must just be new.
What does new say?
Okay, so literally this is just new Who. And they make Ryan the worst. Graham,
really?
Next. Yeah, Ryan is 11, Graham 10, Dan 9. I'd put Dan.
I think they're very close together.
Yeah, and then Yaz. Then
what?
Nardole. Right, then Nardole.
Okay, fuck.
Then
Bill. Wait, then
Bill. And I'm going to stop looking at the list at this point because Bill's not in the top 2 or 3. I'm out. You have lost your...
You lost your damn mind.
But this whole worst thing...
Well, it's the worst thing. That's the worst thing on any nerd site I go to, Newsarama or whatever. Right. If I see the worst, I'm like, fuck that article.
Right.
I just fuck it. And you're not focusing on anything important.
Right. But I want to know where Chameleon ranks.
He'd be last if he's on the list. Sometimes they don't put him on the list. I consider him a companion. He traveled in the TARDIS, and in other fiction they've used him. They've used him in the books. It's like if Katarina's a companion, Chameleon's a companion.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And I hate to say that because I don't want to diss the woman who played Katarina. She was, it was a bad idea.
Right. No, it's there's Dodo.
Yeah, there's some people that love Dodo though.
Yeah, I'm getting pop culture sites and not true Doctor Who sites when I search for this. And I agree with you that searching for it is not the word. I'm actually looking for a robot, right? I'm actually looking for a robot, and there's a robot that I put pretty high because K9's amazing.
Oh, K9's one of the best companions.
I know. So I'm not even doing a dig at at robots.
No, it was just, I mean, that it's a toy. These men were designing, I mean, it's a really early frickin' human-looking robot. I mean, incredibly early technology, that someone actually got it to do 2 or 3 tricks was pretty good.
Mm-hmm. That
you thought you were going to use it every week. It's like, one, just hire a frickin' actor.
Right, exactly.
You know.
I mean, this is pre Star Wars, and they knew that they needed a guy in the suit.
Yeah. So, but all right, folks, that's it for this. Next week we will be talking about enlightenment. So I'm excited about it. I'm kind of excited to see how this one comes back, because Vic is not the biggest Pete fan, but I know she does appreciate a good Pete story. And
I can. It's not that I don't like Pete. It's right as an actor. Right, I love him in lots of things. He's in
a lot of things.
He's in a lot of things, which proves that he's a great actor. But I'm just trying to figure out, where they're going with it. But this one is a good one. I think I remember liking this one because Tegan is given substantive things to do.
And so's Turlo, and the guest cast is good, and the acting is good. I think it's a great. It's one of those ones where they go, let's do something above the concept, and they succeed with it. I mean, it's visually it is, and I will watch it on my DVD, and it has the original special effects and then the updated special effects. Mm-hmm. And I do like the updated special effects. It looks so much better. But I think it works with the original special effects when you see these ships floating through space and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to it. I don't have anything to really recommend. I'm just reading a lot of comics for the podcast. And I'd started reading one that came out in the 90s called The New Warriors. I'd never read it because it was this teen team, but I went, oh, crap. The main 3 creators are people I've loved on other books, and I've been enjoying the heck out of it. It's much better than I thought it would be.
It's February. It's the shortest month, and so it's the month that in the U.S. we talk about Black history. And so I make sure to wear my Black History Matters T-shirt as often as I can get it out of the wash. And last time we talked about the Frederick Douglass biography that is one of the greatest books I've ever read. And it's by David Blight, I believe. Won the Pulitzer Prize. So I cannot recommend that one highly enough. I have moved on to the 1619 Project, which is the complete book that the New York Times did a special supplement on almost 4 years ago now. And as I've stated, as we've talked about on this podcast before, Ross and I joined probably several million Americans whose ancestors were some of the people in the room in 1619 when they decided that chattel slavery based on melanin and continent of origin was a great idea. Yeah. And so
Vic and me even counted me back how many greats to my grandparent to that boat was. And what was it, 13?
12 to Pocahontas.
Yeah. So
12 to Pocahontas and John Rolfe, who would definitely have been in the room, and mine was John Chandler, who was in the room, and later was in the House of Burgesses, and they were both free adult men, and they were deciding, and in 1619, and they were both there. In fact, as we've said, I think before, is that 2 weeks separates our ancestors' arrival on the shores of this country, and that they would have known each other. Yeah. Because the population of Jamestown at that time was very, very small.
Like 300, maybe? If
less. That? Yeah, probably less.
They had just gone through the what is that? What did they call that?
The starving times.
The starving times had just Well, they stopped because food came.
Well, and my ancestor was on the boat with food.
Mine was on the one that is the basis of the shipwreck is the basis of the shipwreck and the Tempest.
Right. And so, and your ancestor was the one who got everybody organized, took the remains of the ships and built one good one and got them safely to Jamestown, only to find
that alone, just the trip from the Bahamas to Jamestown is impressive enough, let alone they had to build a boat.
Right.
When the building of a boat is secondary.
Right. Right.
It's kind of like the Bly thing.
But imagine, we've survived the worst, and then you show up, and they're these skeletal people who have screwed up and didn't plan and haven't got any food, and that the best thing you can come up with is to put those starving people onto the boat that you built and sail to England.
Didn't they die?
Huh?
Did they make it back?
No, as they came out of the mouth of the James River and into the Chesapeake, they were met by the ships coming in.
Okay.
With the ships headed by Governor de la Warre. And my ancestor, John Chandler, was a 10-year-old in the company of, he was a 10-year-old free man who was in the household of Governor de la Warre. And that was the moment that saved the lives of John Rolfe and the other people of the Tempest shipwreck, some of the people who had been starving in Jamestown. And when they reached shore that day, it is very likely that John Chandler and John Rolfe, I believe it was June 10th, that they, June 10th of 1610, that they landed on shore with Governor de la Warre, and our ancestors would have met. And like I said, going back that many, there's several million people whose ancestors were involved at that in that time. And but there's a special responsibility, I think, for those of us who are aware of that, to talk about it.
I think I agree with that, because I think when the gentleman who's a descendant of Robert E. Lee said take the statue down of his ancestor.
Right.
It's, and people are going, but you're destroying my history. It's like, but it's my personal history.
Exactly.
And I'm telling you, I'm ashamed of it.
I'm ashamed of it, right. And I'm brave enough to say that you should be too.
I say some horrible things about Thomas Jefferson out loud now.
Right. But we have this, it doesn't obviate the need of people who, like my wife's family, all came in the 20th century, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that she hasn't benefited, and other people whose family, I'm 2 chapters in, and this is a really good book.
Yeah, I've got an Audible credit, and I'm looking at that Frederick Douglass book. 36 hours.
I know. It was so good, though.
So I might do it.
So, the Douglas book is, he wrote so much. And as I said last time, he was famous in his lifetime, and so people kept his letters. And so
I might do that. And I've got Hamilton in my queue too, so I haven't listened to that.
That's another great one.
Yeah, that's why it's in my queue. I paid for that one, so. Well, folks, we're going to move on, and I'm going to say our goodbye. So, hey, we'll be back next week in 2 weeks with Enlightenment. I'm lining up guests for some off-week shows. We haven't had any of the last couple of weeks. Mark McManus is coming back, and we're going to talk Beep the Meep in comics, because Beep the Meep is going to be in the show, and I'm excited about that. But until we're back, we look forward to seeing you somewhere in time or